Welcome to Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover today. Mary Alice and her friends like pretty clothes and hanging with the in crowd, but when she requests a puppy for her birthday, her parents decide the fluffy one with the pink bow in the pet store window may not be the best choice. Instead, Mary Alice ends up at the local animal shelter, where she not only saves the life of a loving older dog, but learns that once you look beyond the plain cover of things, you can be treated to the true joys that lie underneath. Looking beyond the cover is truly canine, and that dogs do not judge others based on their income, beauty, or status. They live in the moment, rejoicing in every kindness they are shown. Humans, young and not so young, can learn amazing lessons from our four-legged friends when they don't judge a book by its cover. Pets are part of the family, and that's the message I wanted to get across in my children's book series, beginning with Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover, the sequel, Start Off on the Right Paw, and the third one that will be out this fall. Although it's a children's book series, I'm really starting to think of it as more of a movement. And I wanted to talk about it a bit today and have a discussion, and hopefully those of you that are joining in will actually discuss along with me, because in the climate going on in the world today, not only can we use a bit more kindness towards each other, but we really need to take care about judging things. And today is National Specially Abled Pets Day. And just like humans that are somewhat challenged, there are pets too. But the amazing thing about our animal friends is they don't carry that baggage that us humans do. They really live in the moment. And, you know, sometimes, oddly enough, us humans are more apt and prone to adopt a pet that, you know, has some idiosyncrasies, that maybe is three-legged or one-eyed, or, you know, has met some terrible fate prior and really want to make a difference in that animal's life and change it, which, you know, obviously the Pet Safety Crusader is always about, you know, trying to make a difference in the life of an animal. So although we often pick on each other or roll our eyes or, you know, make comments that aren't always the kindest to each other, it is interesting that sometimes our heart comes out and shines the most when we're talking about animals. So being that it's Nationally Specially Abled Pets Day today, I thought the two kind of tied together. And I just wanted to talk about this a bit because as far as judging goes, sure, whether we're two-legged or four-pawed, we judge everything to a certain degree. If it's cold out, we decide we need to wear a sweater. We judge that if we don't do our homework, we're going to get in trouble with our parents. If we are a fluffy creature full of love and we know how to use those big brown eyes looking up adoringly at our human, we know we will probably get something from that. So we make judgments, but hopefully, you know, the judgments in those respects help us make good decisions, and that we're not judging things outwardly, causing unkindness and actual cruelty to other people. Have you ever, you know, had a bad hair day and somebody's made a comment? Or, you know, growing up as a kid, did anybody ever make fun of something you wore, or that fact that you wore glasses, or that you were real tall or real short or a little overweight or a little underweight? I mean, we're always judging people, and hopefully the important thing is that even if we do that judging, we have some sort of filter and that we don't let it show on our face or, you know, roll off our lips. Like I said, it's great that the animals don't carry that baggage, and there are just so many lessons we can learn from our animal friends. I know you guys have heard me talk about this many times before, but about, you know, really living in the moment, taking time to smell the flowers, to chasing our dreams. You know, our animals run while they're sleeping, and, you know, it's kind of like they're chasing their dreams. They're always curious, and they do stay true to who they are. They don't try to be, you know, a squirrel when they're a dog or a mouse when they're a cat. They try to be who they are. And, you know, that's all they know, and they don't worry about what is to come. As humans, we do have to somewhat plan for the future and, you know, realize that something we do today may have an impact or an effect on something yet to come. But there are so many wonderful qualities about animals that we actually can pick up upon, such as like not holding a grudge and not judging in the ways, I'm talking about today. Oh, I'm just looking at the comments real quick. I picked up a black puppy because of reading your book. I was afraid no one would adopt her. And Barbara, that's exactly what I wanted to get into, because the reason if any of you don't know, the reason I started writing these children's books was actually twofold. One of them was Mr. Rico here on the back, because I took him to a library in Whittier, California, and there were about 100 kids, and they were all sitting on the floor, and I was giving a demonstration, and Rico just got down there and was roaming. It was a closed room, so I was able to allow him to roam, and he was just truly the gentlest soul I've ever known. There was no concern whatsoever about letting him roam amongst children. And there was one little boy in the back of the room, for some reason, just didn't want to be there that day, and had the grumpiest face on his grumpiest look on his face, and was sitting cross-legged and crossed-armed, and I couldn't get him to smile. And Mr. Rico swaggered over to him and just licked the smile onto his face. And that's what Rico could do, and that's what a lot of animals can do. Couple that with the fact that I was teaching high school animal care about this time, and I had a lesson in particular where I was teaching children to read pet food labels. I shouldn't say children, they were young adults, 16, 17, 18 years old. And what I found out is that they went home and shared the lesson with their parents, and the parents started calling me and asking some questions. And at first I thought they were going to be saying, what are you telling our kids in class that we can't buy the pet food at the grocery store anymore? Well, instead, they really had some good, intelligent questions, were asking for suggestions, and they wanted to make a change and buy a better quality food for the family dog or the cat. So from this, the light bulb went on over my head, and I extrapolated that although kids don't always listen to parents, parents do listen to children. And if I start writing animal stories for the younger set, they're going to be read along with the parents and the grandparents, and hopefully I'll reach several generations at once. So that's what I was trying to do. But talking about specially abled animals today, I did mention that often in the human world we do discriminate against anybody that isn't quite like us, and that doesn't happen in the animal world. The three-legged dog doesn't not come out to play because he's worried what the other dogs are going to say about him, or the one-eared cat. And oddly enough, sometimes those animals do get adopted more quickly, but not always so. Now, I know Barbara just mentioned she picked up a black puppy because she was concerned about it. And that's one of the lessons here in my book in the back for teachers, for parents, for anybody to go over. The first one is black dog syndrome. And I've come across quite a few people that just say it doesn't exist. But I, as a volunteer at a shelter for many decades, have seen it. Black dogs and cats are very likely to be the last ones to get adopted. There's always exceptions to the rule, but on average, that happens. Now, you can take from that there are probably more black animals than any other particular animal. So, statistically, there may be other things involved, but we all know with black cats, unfortunately, sometimes there's that stereotype and that prejudice that they're unlucky. And it's so crazy because in England and in Japan and some other countries, black cats are actually considered the opposite, very lucky. So we get things in our head. Also, movies and television. I was part of that industry for a long time, and when stories are written about an evil animal, and I shouldn't say the animal's evil, but they portray him in a way where he or she is aggressive. It's often a large black animal. It could be a black cat. They sometimes associate with sacrifices and the occult, with dogs that are on the attack. Unfortunately, they'll choose something like a Rottweiler or a Doberman or some big black Mastiff. And, just because they have a different color to their fur doesn't mean they're any less fun, any less playful, any less loving, and that they just deserve as much nurturing as any other pet. The other issue sometimes with black, exactly, and Barbara, you caught my eye right as I was about to spit it out. Also in the movies, the good guy wears the white hat and the bad guy wears the black hat, whether it's a Western or some other type of movie or TV role. So again, those colors translate, and we associate the dark animal with the less kind or friendly one, and it's just so wrong. Another thing that happens though at shelters, and this takes me back to my first bit of magazine writing, 15, 16 years ago. I was told never to send in photographs of black-coated animals. And I was so offended because I had Mr. Rico at the time, and he was just the handsomest brute. And I'm lucky I've been able to share his photos in a lot of places. But the magazine just said it's so hard to get a good picture of a black-coated animal because it either reflects the light too much or absorbs it. And this goes to another area now, in that at shelters, so many times the first image people are seeing of animals is online. But it's so wonderful that so many places, and I'm so proud of the Burbank Animal Shelter in particular, where I used to volunteer before I moved here, that they've really got a great team together that is taking the time to get those awesome photos that can really make a difference as far as getting the animals to be adopted. Scott says, as a pet sitter, I found isn't that great? Black cats to be the most affectionate and friendly. And Tony, great to have you join in. Great to see you today. That's really interesting. And although I just mentioned that, the color of the fur doesn't make them any less friendly or any less playful, sometimes fur color can have certain traits attached to it. Decades ago, there was a study done, I believe it was in Russia, don't quote me on everything, but on foxes. And they were trying to get a certain color of fur. And with that, when they were able to, breed them for that particular gene, they found out something else was attached to that same chromosome, and they were getting other behavioral issues along with that same color. A good example of that is chocolate labs. Now, you may come across a chocolate lab that's just a fun, goofy, lovable dog, but sometimes they go just a little bit off the deep end and are a little wild and crazy too. I remember I was giving a lot of talks at guide dog type associations, and one time I went and it was all yellow labs. The next time I went, it was all black labs. So, I just turned to somebody and I said, why don't you ever have any chocolates? And the lady leaned over to me and whispered, they're crazy. And I know that isn't entirely true, because there are some really level-headed chocolate labs. But again, with that gene, sometimes there's a little bit of behavior that's also attached to it. But that's where us humans come in, with that nurturing and that obedience training. So the point is, even if you hear something like that, or about a particular breed being, aggressive, don't believe it. It's, there are some things we're all handed those cards as they're dealt out, and but our environment, the people and animals around us shape us. We shape ourselves. So there's so much that can be done. And I'm just looking back over the notes. I'm going to have to get back to a lot of you afterwards, because yes, we need to write a book about Chatto, and I'll share Chatto with all of you guys one of these days soon. And yes, Molly I know of, who was a big sweetie, was chocolate and not crazy. So see, that's exactly what I'm getting at here, not to go on these stereotypes. As far as big, powerful breeds being aggressive, years ago they labeled the bloodhound. Then it was, I believe, the German Shepherd and the Doberman and the Rottweiler. And nowadays it's the pit bull that's getting all the bum rap about, being a bad dog. The animals aren't bad. It's the people around them, and whether we train them to be aggressive or whether we just don't train them. Just like human kids, animals need some parameters set. They need to, learn some basic rules and manners so that we can all get along in this society. So my point is, don't pass over that black dog. Don't pass over that pit bull or that chocolate lab thinking it's crazy. It's not necessarily so. And even if there is, a little quirk to the personality, that makes them a really unique individual and something you can work with to I don't want to really even use the word mold, because we don't want to change animals any more than we do people, but we do want to, make them fit into a family, because if we don't take the time to train them, we're setting them up for disaster and the possibility of them ending up at a shelter because they haven't learned to potty outside, or they haven't learned not to knock over grandma, or they haven't learned not to steal the food off the counter. So teaching those certain rules really can be beneficial, but we also have to realize that, like with people, some animals have different abilities in certain levels, and that we need to work with them. If you have a dog who is fabulous with your family, and you've worked and you've tried obedience training and you've tried more and you've tried more, but still he doesn't like, meeting a dog, down the street when he's on leash, well, just make sure that doesn't happen. We're not going to always change every little quality about an animal any more than we are about a person, but we need to know their limitations and work with it, just like we need to know our own limitations and know what's going to stress us to the max or make us go over the edge, so to speak. So, remember these things about fur color, about perceived aggression. Older dogs, you guys know this is my soft spot. It's so important that we can really make those older years golden for the animals. They often say with an older pet that what you see is what you get, and that the animal's already grown into his paws. You know how big he's going to be. You pretty much see the personality. He's probably actually even settled down and very often already knows his house training and some obedience training. So senior pets can make absolute wonderful pets for anybody. I guess the only one they really don't is if you're, a real athletic jogger and you want your dog to go jogging or hiking with you daily. With a senior pet, you still want him to get out there and get exercise, to move those joints, and to do some cardio so that he's getting good blood and oxygen to the brain, so he's keeping up good cognitive function. But, a lot of them want to be a little bit more of a couch potato, too. So that would probably be the only thing. And then what I'm saying here, once again, then, is know your lifestyle and adopt, a new family member accordingly to what fits for you. But don't pass over any animals based on their breed, on their fur color, on their age. Each one is a unique individual with so much love to give. And if we can stop judging animals, maybe we'll stop judging each other and name calling and doing the unkind things that are happening everywhere today. So I thank you guys for listening to me a little bit about this. I hope you'll smile next time you see a specially abled animal or a person. Offer assistance if needed, but also don't go over to the extreme, because they want to be an independent animal or person, and they're glad to have companionship, but they also may want to do for themselves. Take the time not to judge, even when it's happening in your brain automatically. Try to put that filter on so it doesn't roll off your lips. And I guess with people like me, the bigger thing is not that it's going to roll off my lips, but that my face isn't going to show. My husband always is telling me that what I'm thinking is always on my face. So I need to work on that sometimes too. But, none of us, I don't think any of my listeners here were made or ordained to be God. So none of us, have the right to judge others, whether it's two-legged, four-legged, finned, scaled or feathered. So I hope we can just, the famous words of a decade or more ago, start to get along better and really, appreciate the different species, the different abilities, and the different creatures that we're lucky enough to share this planet with, and that we just really take time not to judge a book by its cover, but to look for the amazing treasures that can lie underneath. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Have an awesome possum weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and I will go back and respond to any of your notes here that I may have missed along the way, but it was wonderful to see you guys, and paws up for pet safety as always. Love you all.